clear my throat again.
Okay, that's okay. I do cut out the start of this anyway. And I
Okay.
do record on just the audio on a separate platform just in case something goes wrong with the audio. It's always good to have a backup.
Oh, good idea. Good
Yeah.
plan.
And I do all my editing in this other platform. It's called Hindenburg. It's great.
Mm.
So, it's really easy to do the audio editing. I love it. All right. If you are ready, I'm going to clear my throat too.
I know I've got a little frog in there.
I know, I know.
Hopefully it'll come right out.
Oh, yeah, exactly. No, oh my God. I had to record. Oh, don't worry, I'll cut this out. I had to record. Um, we were in Europe, as I was saying. We just got back off a plane, 6 planes in 10 days. And then the day after we got home, I'm like, oh, I feel exhausted. And this isn't like a jet lag exhausted. I ended up
Uh-oh.
getting COVID. And
No.
and then trying to record, when you have that frog,
Oh
I was
no. Yeah.
constantly clearing my throat and I'm like, I have my lozenges here, but you don't want to be chewing lozenges when you anyway, it's not
So
fun when you do
hard.
that. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay, if you are ready.
Ready.
Okay.
Go.
In 3, 2, 1. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. My guest today is Jenn Kautsch, aka Sober Sis. Jenn is passionate about making it safe for women to have a conversation about alcohol without judgment, labels, or rules. She is a retired gray area drinker. Around mid 40, she was tired, stuck on autopilot, and ready for a change. Years ago, she created the 21-day reset challenge and has now had over 30,000 women from all over the world participate. And today we will be discussing sober living, facts around alcohol for women, and options for a healthier path to aging. And, I always like to bring in the aging aspect because most of my listeners are in their midlife. Or a little bit older, technically. I guess, I'm going to be 55 in January. So I would be past midlife because I think, what is it? I think around 40 is midlife. So it's kind of like, I'm like, no, no, no. I'm still midlife. I still classify myself as midlife. So there. Let's leave it at that, right, Jenn? But I am really excited for this conversation. I had a show on sober living last year and it was really popular. And now I am so excited to welcome you, Jenn. Thank you so much for coming today.
I am excited, Sandy. We're gonna get into it, and I thank you for having me. It's gonna be a good conversation.
I think so because I love how you really, I don't know if present yourself is the right way, but I love how you are very welcoming to all women without judgment in this area because there is a lot of judgment around alcohol. So I have to ask you about what inspired you to start this. I know I mentioned it a little bit, but I always love to ask my guests a little bit more detail on their story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you again for having me. And I'm right there with y'all in the midlife or beyond. Yep, I'm 53, married with 2 adult kids. And like Sandy said, I am a retired gray area drinker. And we can define that a little bit more today of what that even means. But yeah, this whole midlife passion of mine of helping women really look at their relationship with alcohol without having to have a label or all the shame or stigma or stereotypes that can go with drinking. Because let's face it, y'all, we live in such an alcohol centric society. But yet it's still this stereotyped, often misunderstood um, habit that can form that can really turn into a full-blown addiction. And there's a full drinking spectrum. And I didn't know any of that. I just thought I just needed to use more willpower, get it together, pop myself out of that detox to retox loop. And what I realized was I wasn't broken. Actually, not at all. My pattern was broken. And because it was a lot to do with the science and how our brain works and just the habit loop and our beliefs, once I started unpacking that, I was on the road to freedom. And it wasn't that long that I was experiencing my own freedom that I honestly thought to myself, gosh, there must be other women like me who feel this way, who are not going to necessarily resonate with a 12-step program or kind of the end of the line mentality of black and white, all or nothing drinking. And so I set out to create what I wished I could have found.
Mm, I love that. So it's really a passion for you because you saw that you needed a change. And then, you said the word shame. And I just have to mention this because I've written about shame. And one of my quotes is shame dulls your shine.
Mm,
And
so
when, right? And when women feel a lot of shame behind whatever it is, their history, what they're doing behind closed doors, I think, that shame doesn't set us up for success either when you feel that. So that's why I love what you do.
yeah, because let's start there because I would say when I was stuck in this drinking cycle, I really had more of a thinking problem than a drinking problem, but I couldn't discern between the two. All I did was feel bad. I felt bad about myself because I wasn't living in alignment with my true self. I was really living a very divided life. One girl by day, super healthy, mindful, get her done, ultra responsible. And then it was just my evening habits, my drinking that was just kind of like I'm going to open a bottle and have a glass while I'm cooking. Did I really have just a glass? Usually no, not most of the time because the bottle's open. You might as well just sip it on down. And what I noticed to your point was the more I felt misaligned and divided, the more shame crept into my life and I started playing very small. My world started to get smaller as I began to feel less worthy, less confident about myself. Though I was breaking promises to myself. I was literally eroding my own resilience by breaking promises to myself. So all of this was like a huge shame storm inside. All the meanwhile, I'm like totally saving face out there because my drinking looked like everybody else. It looked like other friends around me. So it's not like I stood out with my drinking habits externally. I didn't have a big rock bottom. I didn't lose anything. Wasn't really getting called out for my drinking. It was something internally that was going on. And so part of my journey was, as you mentioned in my bio, is in my mid 40s. That's when I recognized I am just in this loop and I'm drinking more and enjoying it less. Like what a ripoff. This is not aligning in any part of my life, mind, body, or spirit. And my daughter had just graduated high school. She was kind of getting to reinvent herself. And I thought, Jenn, this is kind of like your chance. This is your off ramp off the drinking highway to maybe just pull over, kind of pop the hood, see what's going on in there. And, quite honestly, in a bigger picture, I wanted to show up at 50 different than I did 40. And I knew for sure it was not going to be a weekend, juice cleanse. I was going to do it. I was going to have to dig a lot deeper. And I knew for me, really the lead domino would be if I could kind of get a handle on my evening wine o'clock and social habits around drinking and my secret drinking, the drinking that I didn't really want anyone to see. So I had all my little tricks of cooking and hiding it behind the cookbook, not because I was literally hiding it, but I also wasn't putting it out there to be counted, if you know what I mean. And I know some of your listeners know exactly what I mean because they're hoping no one's really paying attention because they don't really want to pay attention either. And so I knew for me, if I could get this drinking relationship, and I do call it a relationship because it is like having one, if I could get that more under control, I didn't even know fully what that would mean, then maybe that would increase more of my, confidence, resilience, like do new things. Hello, sleep better, wake up with more energy, ditch the hangover. The hangovers were worse. And I didn't have one every day, but I didn't need one every day to remember the ones that really took me down to just not showing up my best self or, going to a later workout class because the early one was just a little too early. And so anyway, for me, this whole drinking part of my life was a catalyst to get my shine back, to open it up to everything else. Because once I knocked the drinking domino down, all the other ones started to fall too.
You know, I do feel that at this stage in our lives, as let's call ourselves midlife women.
Yeah,
We're gonna roll with that, Jen. Um, I think that a lot of times we're looking for something. We're looking for what is our passion? How are we going to live out the rest of our lives? Do we want to leave a mark on this earth? Do we want to leave a legacy? There's all these things I think come into play for a lot of us who are listening. We have kids. And when those kids are not tugging on your skirt and your pant leg and needing every second of your time, I think it's our time to go, okay, who am I again? Because it's almost like you kind of go through a little bit of a blur when you have little kids and they need you 24 by 7 and they're crawling in your bed. And I know not everybody has children, but I'm just speaking from what I know. And then when I do drink alcohol, and I do on occasion, not very often, I feel like all of those goals and all of those things in my mind become hazy and blurry. And it's like I can't tap into that real part of myself that I want to.
yeah, yeah, totally. There's nothing worse than walking around with this internal mental tug of war or these, the word cognitive dissonance is it's kind of a more popularized word now where it's just talking about the wanting two different things at the same time. It's like trying to chase two rabbits. Well, you can't catch either one. And so, scripture says, you can't serve two masters. So I really do think that that's true when you've got different activities in your life that literally have opposite outcomes and opposite goals. And, again, it's less about right or wrong, good or bad. It's more about, is it serving us?
Yeah.
That is the better question. In fact, for the longest time, Sandy, I was asking myself the wrong question, which really kept me stuck in my drinking cycle and other cycles for a long time, which is it bad enough? Like I kept looking around and seeing that I was, a similar drinker, maybe to my friendship group or my husband or just the world at large. And that comparison trap actually kept me stuck because every time I looked around and said, is it bad enough? Do I have to change? The answer was no, because I could always find someone who was, drinking more, having negative consequences that were visible, external. That wasn't me. So I think to your point, a lot of this is what's going on inside. And I finally started asking myself a better question. Jenn, is it good enough? Is this good enough for me? So it's less about Is it bad enough? It's really a question, is it good enough? Is it good enough for what you're wanting to do? Does it align with you? Does it serve you and the people around you? Are there any benefits to what you're doing? And if there are no benefits to what you're doing, why are we doing it? And I think that's where the real clarity and focus got to come in for me, was I just started recognizing, oh, I've put a lot of value into my relationship with alcohol. I've valued alcohol to take the edge off, to be my companion in loneliness, to make something boring, laborious, like cooking dinner or being out with people you don't know, make it more fun. I'm more fun. And it was almost like, I was bringing alcohol into my life as the guest of honor. Like, oh, now we can get the party started. Now I can relax. And it was like, no, I've been giving alcohol way too much power and value if I think alcohol can do all of that for me and I can't do that for myself.
Ooh, that's a very powerful statement. So the only, for me, a big way that I can relate to what you're saying is when I used to be a smoker. It's like, okay, I quit in my 30s, but I smoked for 20 years. And I quit smoking with my pregnancies, no problem. It was easy because I was vomiting. So that was easy. And then I remember with my first, I started smoking again 9 months after. I'd stopped breastfeeding. I and I know this isn't about smoking, but I'm just speaking about how I relate. So then when I started again, it's like, okay, the kids are good. Now I can sneak
Right.
outside and have my smoke. Okay. And so for me, I'd be like, okay, well, now I'm going to cut down. I'm going to cut down. And I'm only going to have 5 cigarettes a day because I got all the way up to 15.
Right, right.
And now I'm going to cut down. And then slowly I would creep back up and I'd
Totally.
end
They're
up.
very
So,
similar.
right.
Uh,
So, like, I can relate just
yeah,
because the smoking, oh my God, I loved it so much. And me and my girlfriends, we laugh about it. We're like, oh my God, we love smoking. But I know for me, I could never touch a cigarette again, personally, because I loved it that much. And I knew how many times I went down that slippery slope over and over and over again.
yeah.
So, maybe relate what I mentioned kind of to alcohol, because I know it's similar, but not the same.
Right. Similar but not the same, but a lot of times they go hand in hand. A lot of people tend to smoke when they drink or drink when they smoke. So these are two habits that and two highly addictive substances. I mean, nicotine and alcohol are both addictive in and of themselves. So you've got that going on, and then when you attach a dopamine hit to it, it becomes a reward, and then that's a different part of your brain, totally altogether, where you're like, I want that reward, and it's very difficult to moderate or cut down on something that is that rewarding, that gives you that much of a what seems like in the moment a temporary value hit. It's very hard to then attach the anxiety or the restlessness or the irritability to the withdrawal of that reward. And so that is really just to simplify the nature of an addictive substance, is it pulls you back in. Like alcohol, it literally creates a thirst for itself. So when you're drinking, if you want to keep that buzz on or keep experiencing what you typically experience with a drink, you ultimately have to drink more. And people, again, that have a high value, whether that's emotional, social, mental, you take all that and you do it long enough and it becomes physical. But I would say most of the women I work with, in my own experience, it was more mental and emotional this tie that I had. So it was very hard to say, I'm only going to, it's kind of like breaking up with a toxic relationship, or, there's that word again, relationship. It's like having an abusive, boyfriend that you only see on Friday nights. It's like, does that really work? In my case, it was easier just to sever that relationship altogether. But I didn't start out that way. That wasn't my goal initially. It was my secret desire, but I didn't think I could do it. I honestly did not think that I could really pull it off and maintain it with a spouse that drinks. Again, just so much of my social life, my world had drinking all woven throughout it. And so the thought of like never drinking again is not where I started in my mind. And that's why I like to work with women in the gray area, because a lot of what I coach about and teach and offer is not about, hey, join Sober Sis and never drink again.
Mm.
Um, right out of the gate, right at the door, like some programs do. Yeah, I mean, if and again, I wouldn't ever bash any kind of other program or recovery path that works for someone. So I'm out here to say, do what works for you. Find what resonates. Find your people, find the message, the program that works. But for me, it would not have worked to go, you know what? I'm just kind of curious about my relationship with drinking. I really want to cut down. Secretly, I'd want to not want it, but that seems like like I don't know if that's possible to not want it. So I just need to take a break long enough from it to get more clarity. And I think that's where I begin with people. That's where I began in my own journey, is more in a curious stance. Like just really curious, like, that's so interesting. I woke up with such good intentions this morning. Like for sure I'm not drinking tonight. Like I would wake up many mornings, like hit the workout, have my prayer meditation time, have my, salad, green juice lunch. I mean, I was like ticking it down, checking the boxes. And then about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, kind of low blood sugar, kind of get the bonk, where it's like, and I myself was not that great of a planner when it came to like meal prep and like it's getting close to dinner time. So I would find myself in a grocery store kind of right before I picked up the kids from school, throwing together kind of a last minute, what am I going to cook tonight? Grab some ground beef, get the ragu, get some spaghetti noodles. Oh, there's a bottle of red wine always by the meat
Yeah.
section. There's Prosecco by the blueberries. I mean, it's unbelievable the marketing and messaging and the association we make with like Mexican food, margarita. Like there are so many associations, places, places, people, and things. It's very true. And so, yeah, I would basically walk through the whole grocery store and tell myself, no, 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 no. And then get to the cash wrap, get to the checkout, and decision fatigue gets set in. It's that time in the afternoon, and all of my good intentions from that morning literally would fail me. They would go away. And all the willpower I'd used already all day with my other healthy choices. And that's when I would usually grab a bottle that I didn't keep on hand at home, because again, I wasn't going to drink that night. That was the goal. And so I think it's very important just to start out with a lot of curiosity, compassion, and realize, ladies, if you're listening to me, we've been duped. I'm going to go ahead and say it. We've been tricked. We've been duped by the marketing and messaging out there that there are health benefits, that it really doesn't really hurt you that bad. It doesn't really matter. In fact, you deserve it. It's your reward. If you've been, momming all day or been in the office, it's your ticket to freedom. It's what you need at a networking happy hour to, get it done. And really what we're doing is we're dulling our spark, our shine, like you mentioned. We're taking our edge off. Yeah, we're losing our edge is what we're doing. And we are outsourcing so much of our power and so much of our sober mind to this glamorized, encouraged elixir that is not doing us any favors, especially as we age.
This is a great time to get into some of the research, Jen.
Oh, yeah.
It was a perfect segue because a lot, exactly what you said. there's, oh, well, you get your resveratrol from red wine and and it's like, well, no, I actually take resveratrol. I actually take it personally. And I'm not going to tell you that you need to take it. I take it because I have certain genetics that it's actually very beneficial. Not everyone should take it. That's not what I'm saying. But when you hear these things, it gives you that excuse to go, oh, well, it's good for me to do this. So talk to
Right.
us a little about the research. And I know you have a lot as it relates to women specifically and midlife women, right?
That's right. In fact, midlife women, if you're watching this on video, I just put on my readers. So that
And I got
that's
mine
that's
on.
the
I got
signal.
mine on. I got to
That's the
see.
signal that we are now looking down at small things. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, it's true. And a lot of these, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm not trying to bring in just a list of of bad news. It's just things to consider because we don't hear about it in the marketing and messaging. We don't see about it. We don't hear about what I'm about to say on the tea towels and the wine memes and all the jokes. So if anything, consider this a balance to counteract what it is you are used to hearing, which is rosé all day, girl.
Oh, yeah.
You've had a hard day. Let's get together for drinks. Oh, you need a glass of wine, or it's a celebration. We've got to invite alcohol. It's a must, So if anything, consider this a counteractive measure. And what I'm about to say, these are negative consequences of drinking alcohol, it's basically ethanol. Alcohol is ethanol. Um, and when you consider that ethanol has been, given fruity flavors, lots of sugar, things to kind of mask what it is, at the end of the day, it's ethanol for your body. And so it is now a proven, known scientific fact that there are no benefits to drinking any amount of alcohol. The World Health Association, the American Heart Association have come out and said actually there are no benefits. So you got to know, and again, make an educated, empowered choice. When you're drinking alcohol, you are drinking a toxin. You just are. It's a carcinogen. It is there are known tie-ins to cancer, which again, no one wants to hear because when you're out there drinking, you're thinking you're decreasing your anxiety because you're chilling out and you're taking the edge off. But really, what we're doing is we're pouring gasoline on anxiety, on inflammation, and on other things. So, what I'm about to say really applies to any age, but I will say take everything I'm saying and 10x it for every decade that you've got on this earth because as we age, for example, our bodies lose water volume. That's something that happens in our bodies. So as a result, we are less able to dilute alcohol in our systems. So that's an age thing. Women already have less of the enzyme that metabolizes alcohol. So if you're going out with your guy and you're trying to keep up drink for drink because he had one, you have one, he ordered one, you're going to order one. You go to another place, he got one, you got one. It is not landing the same inside your body as it is for him. So, we know that alcohol is damaging on a cellular level. It crosses that blood-brain barrier. It goes into alcohol is one of the few drug substances that can go everywhere in your body. So it's not just affecting one part. We think of our liver. Oh, the poor liver, we've drank too much, our poor liver. No, your poor body, because all of your systems are affected to the point that oftentimes you're unable to absorb nutrients properly. That's
Mhm.
why when you're drinking a lot, it's not an even exchange. I used to do this all the time, Sandy. I would go out to dinner with my husband. Let me just paint, let me get real again with a story. So I would go out to dinner with my husband and we would go let's get a steak dinner. We're meat eaters. I'm down here in Texas, so meat eater.
Me
Um,
too. I am too.
Okay,
So
I'm a meat eater. I
listen,
love a good steak.
I'm Croatian. I grew up like seeing like pig's feet and things like that in stews, so I'm all good.
Nice. So we'll go out and get a steak dinner. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I have an association with steak that you drink red wine. Like that, don't they go hand in hand? That's what I saw. So I didn't realize that while I was eating this big hearty steak dinner with mashed potatoes and all these calories and all this protein, all this good stuff, and drinking a glass or two of, my red cab, my body was actually halting metabolism and burning through what it was I was eating until after it burned through what I was drinking. And that was a wake up call, especially when after a big steak dinner and I've had a glass again or two, because we might get there and have an appetizer, go to the bar first. Again, a very social thing. Maybe I would have just a little bit more because again, the alcohol itself is saying have more of me because this feels really good in the moment.
Hmm.
And some people have a better off switch than others. Mine tend to break sometimes. And I know you've got a listener out there who's like, she just said her off switch didn't work. Mine didn't work real well either. Now I could jiggle it. I could make it work. I could stop. In fact, I could stop drinking anytime I wanted. But oh, one more. Come on, it can't hurt. I didn't drive here. My husband drove, whatever. I worked out today. In fact, I would oftentimes have maybe one more or a little port or a little dessert drink so I could drink my calories. In fact, that would be my cute little answer. Can I just drink my calories? And I would have more.
I wanted to ask you about that, Jen. Is there any research about, because I've seen this where women will drink instead of eating.
Totally a thing.
It's a thing, right? Because I've
The thing.
seen it and you know, I mean, I remember being younger and saying, "Oh yeah, you get a buzz much faster, right? So you don't have to spend as much money drinking at the bar." It was logical. However, to me, like now at my age, I'm like, oh my God, like, isn't that dangerous? Like, don't you need to have a little bit of a base? And I'll be like, you got to eat something before. And I say that to my kids. I'm like, make sure you eat something before you drink. So,
Totally.
is there any research around this? I've always wondered.
Well, I mean, definitely the research is first off, yeah, I mean, if you are choosing to drink, I would definitely um, do that with something in your system to help absorb some of what you're putting in there because again, it's going to shoot across your different receptors, your different parts of your body very quickly. And so yeah, I've done that. I've worked with a lot of women who've done that. They're too tired when they get home, the wine's calling. In fact, I've worked with a lot of women that have done, Weight Watchers or MyFitnessPal or all the different apps out there where there's points. And you can actually, if you look at it like, well, I'm just going to use my points for wine instead of my points for dessert or my points for a meal, it's not the same. These points are not equal to
It's
your
not
body.
food. It's not
It is
food.
not food. It is not food. And I don't know how many times I had focused on maybe more what I was drinking and then what I was eating as the side, like cheese and crackers, like a little charcuterie tray. But like the main thing was, and I didn't consciously think this while I was doing it, but for sure it's exactly what was happening. The main thing was what I was drinking, and everything else was kind of a side.
And just one point, I do want to make this as just as a nutritionist
Yeah,
at our age, just to be able to assimilate and use our nutrients that we do take in, it gets a little bit more difficult. Maybe our stomach acid is not optimized. Maybe our hormones are off, and maybe our metabolism has slowed down. So there's many factors
there's already a lot going on. So when you're in your kitchen just kind of mindlessly sipping and mindlessly snacking, it's really doing a number on all level. And that was me oftentimes, especially if the kids, had sports or my husband was out of town. It was kind of lazy on my part because I thought, oh, I'll just pour a drink and have some cheese and crackers. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna try to, get drunk or, take my mind out of reality. It was more of a mindlessness.
Mm,
And I think that that's part of the biggest part of my message is mindfulness, sober mindedness, being awake, alert, aware in our own lives. This living on autopilot is crushing us, ladies, because we do get in that habit loop. What started to me as a real treat, a real pleasantry, a real book club, date night turned into Tuesday night while I'm cooking and the kids are doing homework. My brain didn't understand the difference. It just wanted the reward. And I felt, well, if anything, I need a reward for sure on a boring old Tuesday night with not much going on. And so it's just really easy to slip into that mindless sipping, mindless eating. And then before you know it, you're like, dadgummit, I did it again. Dang, it's like 10 p.m. I'm eating, chips and queso. What's happening? I would never do that if I were mindful or in my sober mind at 10 p.m. for
yeah.
many reasons.
And then add to it, you replaced maybe the wine and the cheese and crackers with what could have been a really healthy, nutrient dense meal, which is
Right.
what we all know we need more of right now. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, and something that would have been more life-giving. I talk so much about this in Sober Sis and in life. It's so true. I think oftentimes when we get in this mindless autopilot, just searching for rewards for just life being lifey, um, what we end up doing is we sacrifice the rest that we need, the mental rest, the emotional rest, the physical rest, the rest for our souls. We exchange it in light of just quick relief. It's just like relief is so temporary and it's such instant gratification. And we live, all of us, myself included, in such a society that just says, you just deserve it. Just go for it. I mean, you know, YOLO. Remember when our kids used to say that? You only live once. Um, so there's just kind of this, when we opt for just quick relief versus real restorative rest, restorative eating, things that replenish and restore us versus just deplete us more, because actually that's what alcohol's doing. When you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're bored, when you're lonely, when you're overwhelmed, women tend to drink more for emotional reasons than men. Men tend to drink for more social reasons than women, believe it or not. Now, I say we all drink for all of those reasons, but that's a real distinguish um, thing is that, yeah, women tend to drink due to emotional triggers, whereas men typically drink more for positive social reinforcement. So it's like, we're watching football with the guys, got to get a beer. For women, it's like, well, we want the champagne or the mimosa too at the baby shower, which is a whole topic in and of itself. Having mimosas at a baby shower with the prego that can't drink one with you. Just our society today.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's crazy. So I think it's almost reverse engineering what we're doing, reversing it back to what do we really want? What do we really need? Do we really need quick relief that's gonna take from us days later? I mean, when you drink, this is just a scientific factoid. When you drink, alcohol and the effects of that alcohol from a physiological perspective take you out of that homeostasis for about 7 to 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah, let that sink in, y'all, because I did not know that either. That's why I think the science is so important. When you drink on a Friday night, your cortisol is still higher on a Monday than it would have been otherwise. So there is, and again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a nutritionist, but I do know from all of my research and my own experience, what I've read, that my anxiety increased for days after drinking, not just the next morning, days, because it's still getting out of your system. And that's why I think so many women who have such good intentions, again, my heart is for you. It is out of compassion that I'm sharing these things because I myself was really just in the dark on this stuff. I didn't know. I thought I was just a weak-willed person that needed to try harder, get it together, apply everything that I was applying to my disciplines by day to be more disciplined by night. And I couldn't do it with this. Willpower did not work. Deprivation mindset did not work. A bunch of rules, broke them, didn't work. Shaming myself didn't work. And those were all of the things that I had tried on repeat for about 5 years while I was trying to change this habit on my own in isolation. And it just didn't take me anywhere. And so I think when women know more, it's empowering, but when we do something with it, it's transformational. It's truly life change. And so I want you to know, if you're listening and you're like, man, she's reading my mail, there is great hope. There is a way out of this cycle, but you do have to really go back to your why, your WHY. Why do you want to change? Reverse engineer it back. What are you doing? Is it really serving you? Is it working? Is it actually working? Are you taking the edge off, or are you down and out for the next 2 days in a subtle way that's just not your best life? You're still high functioning, you're getting everything done, but you're dragging around this headache, this a little bit of irritability, this anxiety. And then what happens is we drink and it goes away for just a brief period of time. All of those quote symptoms go away because alcohol is anesthetizing the anxiety, the overfeeling, the overthinking, the overdoing, the codependent, all of that. It's literally, it's numbing everything. Brene Brown is very famous for this quote, you can't selectively numb. So you can't numb out your anxiety and keep a lot of your confidence and resilience. It's going to go out together. And so I think that's something to ask ourselves. What are we really wanting here? And is what we're doing really serving us? Is it providing what we're really looking for? I have found in my own journey of just being on this sober, curious, now alcohol-free journey, that being alcohol-free has honestly provided everything that drinking promised, but never delivered.
Mhm. I I did read some research about that whole cortisol. I know Huberman,
Yes.
he talks a lot about alcohol and the effects of alcohol. And I did hear or read him talk about the research on cortisol. So for anybody's who's not sure what that is, that's your stress hormone.
Yes.
So yeah, so if you and here's another thing that is, I'm sure, often not talked about, and I know this because it's in discussions with menopausal women all the time. When your ovaries shut down and they're not making your sex hormones, guess what has to make them? Your adrenal glands. And guess what your adrenal glands make? They make cortisol. And if you're constantly overproducing cortisol, which is your stress hormone, you're going to lack in other areas where your adrenal glands need to work. Like if you're one of these women who chooses not to go on bioidentical hormones, you ain't going to have any if your adrenal glands are not functioning well. So I think, the one thing that's probably not talked about is how everything is so interconnected in our body. It doesn't work in silo, our
Right.
systems.
And we kind of wanted to because we like to compartmentalize our lives. Like I'm this woman by day, I'm this woman by night. I'm like this on vacation, but I'm like this at home. I'm like this on a Friday night, but not a Tuesday night. But our bodies don't know the difference. And oftentimes, that 7 to 10 days number, I work with a lot of women who are, again, so health conscious and so mindful that they'll go Monday through Thursday without drinking. And but it's the weekend. I'm not going to drink during a work week. I got to look alive, sis, during the work week. But on the weekend, oh, it's my time. It's my time to chill, relax. You're never getting out of the craving cycle. All week that you're not drinking, you're pining away deep down. um, Physiologically, you're going through withdrawal symptoms. And again, that sounds so like, whoa, withdrawal. We think about it for like an addict on a park bench with a paper bag. No, withdrawal symptoms happen all the time. It happens with sugar. It happens with a lot of things. When you're going through withdrawals, it's just that everything that goes up must come down. Um, and so all that means is it could be, the brain fog, the higher anxiety, a little bit of restlessness. Well, you can feel that way Monday through Thursday and just think it's your age, it's your work. And it may be some of those things, but if you're drinking on the weekends, you're also trying to plow through all the withdrawal symptoms throughout the week. And then that's why Friday quitting time, Friday, wine o'clock, 5 o'clock, the pull is so strong because you've waited all week with that release. And again, attaching that mental, emotional, social value to it. And that's why mindful awareness of your body day in, day out, weekday, weeknight, weekend, is really empowering because now I look at my life on a continuum of how can I be more present and how can I be more healthy versus, oh, it's this day, it's a cheating day. Again, I'm not about perfectionism. I think that actually drives people to drinking. I
Yeah.
think perfectionism and people pleasing and high performance, which again, I've described women I work with often because I work with women just like me who tend to be type A, go get her done. You can only hustle and do that for so long, and then you're going to crash and burn. So, what I've also discovered is self care. What does that look like day in, day out throughout the day? Not just a spa day for 4 hours every 6 weeks, but like every day. How do you have that release valve? How do you get your rewards elsewhere? How do you even keep the ritual of decompressing and unwinding without using something that just provides quick, instant relief, but actually takes from you? To me, that's the journey. And that's where it gets really fun and exciting, to create that kind of lifestyle where you're like, wow, everything can be more of a deposit instead of always trying to balance out deposit, withdrawal, deposit, withdrawal. That's what moderation was for me with drinking. It was like, okay, well, I can drink here, but then I'll have to juice cleanse there. And it was like, it was more work for me than just going, well, I'm not perfect. And, I don't always eat great. And sometimes I skip a meal. That's not great unless I'm, purposeful. And so it's more about mindfulness and more about choosing than it is about social pressure, peer pressure, even at our age in our 50s or above.
Yeah.
Um, the peer pressure, the social norm of, come on, just have a drink, just have one. I mean, what if you don't want one? What are you going to say? What are you going to do? And that's a lot of the inner work is getting back to your alignment, your true self and your balance, and then going out there and just staying true to you, but being supported enough to do that so you don't feel alone.
Mm. Another thing I just want to mention briefly, like I know that's, I've heard this term before, is hangxiety,
Yes.
right? And for me personally, I don't get that way. I get very down. So there's
Yeah.
different people will feel differently. I know I get down. And alcohol is a depressant, isn't it?
Totally. It is a depressant. It can feel like a stimulant when you're doing it because it's
Yeah.
just like a sugar hit, and because a lot of that is also metabolizing into sugar too. So it's like, wee, yay, this is fun. I can dance longer. I have more energy. Oh, Sandy or Jen's getting tired. They need another drink. So it'll kind of be an upper. No, not really. It's really a downer. It just feels good in the moment. So it's a trick. It's kind of a trick because, yeah, it's really an artificial high that you're feeling. It's kind of a euphoric temporary high. And wow, like I said, everything that goes up must come down. So there's this chemical, perhaps you probably know more about it than I do, called dynorphin, that literally counteracts a lot of that artificial dopamine spike, that rush. And that's what usually happens when I talk to women about the 3 a.m. wake up call. That's what I call it, the 3 a.m.er, where, and again, you can have that for a lot of reasons, hormonally
Oh,
and
yeah.
whatnot. But if you've been drinking, that 3 a.m., that kind of racing heartbeat, the feeling of dread, um, that's the other side of the alcohol. That's the other side. That's the coming down, and that can feel really debilitating in the middle of the night because you're laying there thinking about all your responsibilities the next day, how you're not going to do this again, how you regret it, and then you wake up and then starts the cycle again, the detox to retox loop, all the good intentions, all the trying to sweat it out with all the hot yoga you can possibly fit in your schedule. Go for the 90-minute class, like, plus it's so rough because you're already super dehydrated. You're already dehydrated. And then we try to sweat out the toxins. I know I did hot yoga for a decade.
Okay,
Um,
can I just tell you something really?
Brutal.
Okay, this is totally an aside, and I'm not sure. So, anybody who's listening, go research this because I'm not sure if this is 100% true. But I have heard that when you do hot yoga, you're not even detoxing because your body is in such a high state of stress that you're not even, and if you're detoxing just alcohol, or you think you are you really? Because remember, when you're detoxing and sweating like that, in order to detox, you have to have a really good foundation of minerals in your body. Right? So just something
Totally.
for everybody to think about. I'm not 100% sure on this, but
Well, I can tell you just from my own experience, going into a hot yoga class, like a Bikram hot yoga class, which are notorious for like being pretty hardcore, hungover and dehydrated, thinking that if I can just drink enough electrolytes in the car on the way, just doesn't work that way. And so oftentimes I would leave there feeling way worse. Um,
yeah.
and just felt like I was almost like paying penance. Like it was almost like a body kind of subconscious punishment. Like get in there, sweat it out. And I just sometimes I just couldn't even do the class. Because again, as we age, our bodies just don't bounce back like it seemed to do when we were younger, and there are physiological reasons for that. And yeah, and then just the shame and the getting down on yourself and all of these things, if you don't have the right tools, strategies, or a community of support, actually make you want to drink more. I mean, let's think about it. If you're in a state of mind that's down on yourself, you're feeling high anxiety, you feel terrible physically, and then you take a drink. I mean, that's why there is a physical addiction side to this. And people who have gone all the way down the drinking spectrum, there's about 10% of heavy drinkers that would fit into the physical addiction part of the drinking spectrum. So the majority is kind of in that gray area, right? Kind of like a bell curve. Like very few people who drink truly take it or leave it, don't care. Maybe they'll do a toast once a year at a wedding. They drink alcohol, but like totally means nothing. And really, if they knew more, they may not drink it at all. I mean, it just doesn't have that connection. All the way to it can be very dangerous to have physical withdrawal symptoms if you're in the physical, addiction aspect of drinking. And so, yeah, I just think, all the things that we do to try to kind of have our cake and eat it too. For example, I would, have my little nightly glass of wine while I was cooking. And then I would also be at the grocery store, and not to give advertisement for this product, but there's one out there called Party Smart. And it was like a capsule. It was like a supplement with like milk thistle and all kinds of like things that were supposed to be good for your liver. And I would literally buy that in tandem with my alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a wake
Mm-hmm.
up call right there. If you're doing that, you're not a bad person. You're just trying to mitigate what it is you're doing that you know is not doing you any favors. But that pull, that draw is so strong. And I just want to recognize that if you are in this habitual drinking place where you can take it or leave it, but when you leave it, you really are feeling miserable, deprived, left out. You don't really have the tools. You're just kind of white knuckling it. Maybe you are going through your work week without anything, and then you're just kind of like binging on the weekend. Or maybe you were like me, just kind of mindlessly sipping throughout life and taking days and weeks off in between. But it was kind of my home row key, if you will. Because again, it just felt normal. It's what we did to transition from day to night.
Yeah, I'm glad that you specified that because you gave some examples of maybe spots where you want to be more cognizant. And the one thing I always say is this show, whatever I talk about with any guest, it's not to preach or to say that you must do this, but if you're listening, it's probably because something is resonating within you that you want to listen. So that to me is great. And I think it's just like, you know, if somebody was to tell me, oh, smoking does all these bad things to you and da 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 da, if I wasn't ready to listen, it would literally go over my head,
Right.
right? So I'm glad that you mentioned just a few examples of where it might be something that you want to think about. Now, is a lot of your programs, is it mindset, Jenn?
Yes, I would say a lot of what I am talking about in my 21-day challenge that does start at the beginning of every month. Of course, dry January is coming up, and that's
Oh,
a
yeah.
that's a big one. But a lot of it is mindset because if we don't go to the root of our thinking, and we just do behavior modification. We can all do that for, there's National Quitters Day. It's usually the second Thursday, I think, or the second week of every January. It's literally on the calendar, National Quitters Day, because that's just behavior modification. And if we just do it all based on emotion, well, I could moderate or choose to not drink if my emotional well-being was stable. But what if it got unstable? It wasn't going to work. I had to work even back deeper and further in with my thinking. And so that's a lot of what I talk about is practical strategies on the behavior side, more how to manage the emotions, but all of these things come from our thinking. And so I think a lot of it is practical, especially at the beginning when women are just like, okay, I'm going to trust you, Jenn. I'm going to try to set alcohol down for, 21 days, 3 weeks. I'm like, give me 3 weeks. And if you drink during the 3 weeks, you're not a failure. It's not this big slip up, so you have to slide. You can just take it as valuable feedback. In fact, we look at it as recon. Like you just got a data point. Let's use the data. Forget the mistake, remember the lesson. So this is not signing up for checking boxes or being perfect. This is more of a journey into experimenting with your own body, noticing your emotions, and questioning and challenging your beliefs, and going back to your thinking, all within safe community. Because it's been said the antidote to addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. And I've seen it true time and time again because you can read all the books and even listen to this podcast, which I hope is helping. But at the end of the day, it really boils down to having connection with other like-minded humans. In this case, sisters. We're an all women's group, so that's a unique flavor to what we're talking about. We talk about everything when it comes to hormones and challenges, being a wife, a mother, a daughter, a friend, a sister. How do we manage that? Because there is an aspect of emotional sobriety, and I really talk so much more about being sober minded, than I do about being, quote, sober or sobriety, because I do work with women who truly just want to drink less.
Mm.
And there's room for that in our group because I think that's the best place to start. Some women join Sober Sis and they know, I'm done. I don't want to drink less. I don't want to drink at all. There's a place for you as well. But I think for me, when I just started hearing information like this, I was intrigued. I was open minded. I was willing instead of willpower. I had willingness, and I was willing to give it a short term goal. Just like give it a go for a short term. And what happened was, back in 2017 for me, it was that was a big transformative year. Again, that was the year that my daughter was moving and kind of reinventing herself, and I knew that if I wanted to show up differently at 50 versus 40, I was almost 46 at the time. I was right smack dab in the middle of my 40s. Um, and two, I needed to be all hands on deck. She was making a major life change, and I knew that it was going to cause me some anxiety and stress and excitement, and I wanted to be there for her. And I knew with the time difference, me being in Texas and her moving to the West Coast, I needed to look alive in the evenings. I couldn't be on a second glass of wine if she called and needed me and not be all there. So it's a huge catalyst for me. It really was. But I didn't start out with like, hi, I'm curious, I'm never going to drink again. It was like, hi, I'm curious, I want to drink less, and I want to not want it as much, and I want to not think about it as much. So what can I think about instead? Because I'm usually, just kind of counting down.
Mm.
Uh, is it 5 o'clock yet? I can wait. I can wait. That's appropriate. That's appropriate drinking. 5 o'clock. And so I could wait. And I was just so tired of that rat race of, you know, be good all day and then wait for five for what? And yeah, so I really do invite women to start at a more curious spot and open minded. And then, yeah, so it was that spring of 2017. My first goal was 6 weeks, 42 days, 1,000 hours. And I did it. I did it. It wasn't hard physically after the first week or so. The physical cravings of like, oh, I want a glass of wine right now. Physically, that would relieve any of my like we talked about, kind of some of those subtle withdrawal symptoms of a headache, irritability. After about a week, a lot of that felt better, but the emotional, mental is what I was left with. And then I could see, oh, this is where the value is. And but it wasn't like I couldn't put it down. I just decided one day I think I'm done. I'm going to take a break. And it's been almost 8 years since that time.
Wow.
But
See,
I didn't start out thinking I will never drink again. I started out going, I would like to not drink right now, and it would be awesome if I wanted it, I could have it, and if I didn't want it, I wouldn't have it. And I wanted to not want it, and it took me about a year to retrain my brain, the neuro pathway to really get so newly developed that at one point I didn't want it anymore. I could have it, but I didn't want it. And that felt very different than wanting it and not having it.
yeah, it's like, do you have that willpower? So the way I always see dry January, I maybe because I never looked into it, I would always picture it like, okay, I'm going to use my willpower and I'm not going to drink. And then as soon as it's February 1st, I'm going to crack open that bottle of wine and chug it back and get right back into my old habits. So this is just looking from an outside perspective. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's how it is. I'm just saying that's how it seemed, or that's how often it would be presented, whether it's
Yep.
on social media from other people, whether it's, but the way that you talk about it, it's very different. It's being more cognizant and saying, okay, what tools can I even develop for myself during this time so that I'm not going to want it, like you said,
That are
in a year?
useful in February and March and April, and then the summer months, and then you've got the patios, the pools, the beaches. If anyone wants to make more change in their life, they've got to have tools that are sustainable, that can just not be, like dry January. I love that there's a quote buzz about it, pun intended. There's quite a buzz around dry January, and I love that because the numbers are increasing every year with people who are sober curious. That's an actual term. Um, but I do think a lot of people think, oh, well, I'll just got almost like prove to myself I don't have that big of an issue, that I don't have a problem. Cause see, I can do dry January. I'll just hit the pause button and then almost like celebrate that I did dry January with drinking, which again I've done numerous times. Celebrate not drinking with drinking.
Mm.
Um, and so I think, yeah, I think the opportunity is there to dig deeper and then have tools that you can build upon. I think it's just the beginning, not the end. And when I was doing all these 30-day challenges and detox with that in mind of like proving to myself, I could, so I can't have that bad of a problem if I can stop, see, I was missing it. It was like I was literally missing the boat, missing the opportunity. And so now it's almost like an invitation to just get started, but you got to start somewhere. And I think it's easier, honestly. I mean, all the habit books say it. I love James Clear and all of his work when it comes to habits and breaking it down. It's easier to have this effort ladder, if you will, where you don't climb a full ladder with two rungs on it. You want as many rungs as you can, then you just climb it. And a lot of that is by setting smaller, attainable goals for yourself, getting positive feedback, feeling the momentum, and then just going to the next rung, just moving the goalpost a little bit, which is all I did to get to this point where I've truly created an alcohol-free lifestyle. It's a part of my identity. I had an identity as a drinker, and then I've now switched it to having an identity as a non-drinker. Um, I don't necessarily walk around and say, AKA sober sis, or I'm sober. I'm a non-drinker. I don't drink alcohol. I drink a lot of other things, but I don't drink alcohol. And this is a side note to my story, Sandy. And I don't know if you know this because I don't know if we've talked about it, but I didn't start drinking until my young 30s. I
Really?
did
So you
not
didn't
drink in
party
high
in
school.
your
I did not
20s?
party. I did not party hardy in high school. I went to a
Wow.
state school here in Texas, was very active in a sorority, was totally in the mix. And for me and my personality, it just did not appeal to me at all. It looked kind of out of control, kind of wild, kind of rebellious. Back in the 80s, yes, I'm totally dating myself.
Me too.
Um, 80s kid right here. There was no Uber. There was no cell phone. I mean, if you got yourself in a pinch and you're, throwing up at a frat house or, stumbling around and your girlfriends are too, that just, for me, just did not appeal to me. It looked kind of scary. I'm a rule follower by nature, except for, my own rules when it came to drinking as an adult. So yeah, so I was actually a married mom working and kind of fell into the happy hour scene, fell into the networking. You deserve this. This is stressful. You've had a long day. This is kind of your mommy wine juice. That the whole mommy wine juice culture, which really started about 20-ish years ago when many of us listening were young moms. And it kind of came on the scene because honestly, when I say we've been duped, I mean purposefully. The alcohol industry literally recognized who is not drinking enough. We've
Mm.
already got the men. We've got them on their beer and bourbon and whiskey thing that they're already going. You've got certain segments of society that are drinking, but who's really not drinking enough? Where's the demographic we need to really turn it on? Moms, women working in their home, out of their home, women in general, but especially moms. And that's when you started to really see. And I think that was very different than when I was a teenager or in my young 20s. My mom didn't drink in a mommy wine juice culture. She didn't take a Yeti to the park
No.
and put, like,
Nope.
and nor did we, as or I didn't.
I
Again, no
didn't
judgment
either.
here.
I was not into that.
As a young mom,
Yeah.
whereas now, and I think young moms, quite honestly, are wise. They're wisening up. They're watching a lot of us in this middle age bracket. They've watched us, and they've also watched us um, not have the success that we wanted with our wine o'clock habit. They can see, and so actually, for the first time in history, we, our demographic, I say we, I'm 53, this kind of middle age zone, which is your audience, for the first time in history, we are drinking more as we age, not less. And we are now the demographic that is having the most struggle and the most problem with alcohol. It's not the young people, it's not our sons and daughters, it's us. And that's why, again, I'm so passionate to bring this conversation to the forefront and why I'm so thankful for the opportunity because we're the demographic that's kind of slowly fading in the background with this habit at home. A lot of it is at home. It's kind of like not bothering anybody, don't want to get in anybody's way. It's that taking our shine away, like you mentioned at the beginning, and dulling our spark, dumbing us down, saying we don't really have anything left to offer. We're kind of done.
Mm.
No. Sandy and I combined are here to say, no, you're not done. You can just get started. I started Sober Sis when I was 47 and jumped into the realm of social media and business and creating what I wish I would have found, but I didn't know what it would entail. And so I'm just, so thankful in my now mid 50s to have such passion and purpose that I would not have had access to had I become a professional patio drinker in these empty nester years, which was exactly the direction I was heading. Just to kind of get dressed up and go with my husband to networking events, play my pickleball and just kind of, wine and dine. Or keep working and just hustle and hustle and then find myself at the bottom of a bottle on the weekends or after a long day killing it at work. There's just more. There's just more. And I think a lot of your audience are probably, grandmas or are going to be. And I work with a lot of women in their late 50s, 60s, 70s, and even have a handful of sober-minded sisters in our community that are in their 80s. My matriarch, Sober Sis, is 84, and she just recently, in the last 6 months, did my 21-day reset challenge, and it's changed her life at 84. So, I mean, I'm here at 53 to say it's never too early and it's never too late to change your relationship with drinking because there's so much more on the other side. You really don't have a drinking problem as much as you have a thinking problem.
Hmm. I love that. Oh my God. Everything that you talk about, I love. I've done some cognitive behavioral therapy courses because nutritionists, there's a lot of correlation between what you're talking about and food addictions as well. With the whole emotion side. But the
Yeah.
key is this, and I think you are doing incredible things. What you're doing is you're helping all of these women just to wake up and
Yes.
and and let the way that you age be your choice. Let it be
That's
your
right.
choice. If you want to retire and go enjoy life on a beach in Croatia, which is what I'd love someday. I'm just kidding. I actually have no plans to retire. I don't. I'm just going to keep going until I'm not going anymore.
Right.
But I'm just saying everybody
Yeah, who knows, right?
has.
You may be called to a whole second, third act in your life and something that may have been lying dormant, or in my case, I think, and again, I'm just coming from my own faith perspective here. I think that God all along had been almost like predestined me. I mean, I really believe that we are all given a special purpose when we come to this world. I think that that's already inside us. And I look back now at my life at this point, and I can already begin to see the skill set, the experience, the heartache, the mess to get to this point to have this message. It all came together, the highs, the lows, the good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly, all of it. I need it all to do what I'm doing now. And I just think that's so gracious because in my view, and again, as a Christian, I was oftentimes, and I know some of your listeners, this may resonate, there were oftentimes I was literally praying to God to take this away. Like, take this away. Take this mental tug of war away. Take this divided life away. The conviction I felt of being kind of hypocritical with my kids, kind of like, do as I say, not as I do, unless I can hide what I'm doing. And then you can think that I'm not loving this feeling that I'm getting when I'm numbing out a little bit around you. And again, this isn't on them, it was me. I had to really reconcile that. And I kept saying, God, take it away, while I was like holding on to the wine stem as tight as I could. Take it away. And I'm so glad in his mercy and in his grace that he didn't, quote, just take it away. I have a relationship with God. I don't look at it like religion. I personally see it more as a relationship. And in a relationship, you don't do that. You just walk up and take things away. You partner. And that's what I really experienced on a spiritual level, because I really do come at this from a holistic point of view, mind, body, and spirit. So from a spiritual level or point of view, I was like, okay, God, instead of me trying to perform, white knuckle it, and do all these things that are not working for me, what if I just met it with, again, the curiosity, the willingness, and almost like a surrender? Like, I'm just going to surrender this and I'm going to let go and partner with you. So I'm going to still do my part. I'm not going to just sit back and ask for some, genie in a bottle or some magic wand to come. I'm going to need to do the work. We hear that all the time. You got to do the work. Well, what's the work? Well, the work is ongoing, people, because we're still doing the work over here. But the work was being able to be honest with myself. The work was being honest with other people. The work was learning instead of just trying to quit. The work is the journey, and that's where the partnership for me changed everything, because it was just filled with kindness, grace, and patience. Because again, I think there was this other purpose that he had for me, but I had to go through the fire to come out on the other side, to be so passionate almost 8 years later, to keep talking about it every day.
Yes, ma'am. It's called the
Every day.
hero's journey.
Yes.
Hero's journey. Been there, done that. That's why I'm doing what I do right now.
Yes. We
It's
want that for other people. Yes.
yes.
To
And
be a hero in their journey too. Yeah.
yeah. So this has been an amazing conversation. I love you, Jenn. Like, honestly, you're just so real and so down to earth. And I would love for you to tell my guests, and I will have everything in the show notes as well, all the links, but let us know where we can find you and follow you, especially for those of you who are just curious, just curious.
Yeah.
Go check out Jenn. Just see, because you can see how Jenn speaks. It's not with judgment, it's not with harshness or anyway, I just let us know. Where can we start off?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've got a website. If you go to sobersis.com, I've got most everything there, but I'm really most active when it comes to social media anyway, on Instagram, just at Sober Sis, one word, Sober Sis, and of course Facebook too. But at the beginning of every month, as I mentioned, I do run a 21-day reset challenge. So women can sign up for that at any time during the month, and if you're kind of past the first part of the month and you go to the next month, but I have what's called a runway. So I have all kinds of resources and ways to help women anytime you're ready to get started. But if that seems even like a little much, I do have a free guide. I have a free guide for 1 o'clock tonight. If you're like, okay, let me just try some of your strategies and see if they work. And so, yeah, Sandy can put all that below in the show notes. But maybe just starting with my free guide and looking at, an upcoming event, or a wedding or a holiday party, and going, I'm just going to try to not drink tonight. Let me try some tools and see if they work. And then if you really want community, because I believe, as one of my coaches says, community is immunity. When you've got community, you can become more immune to the pressures and the temptations and the loneliness and the pressure of just social drinking during such a busy time. And really, with dry January coming up, there's a time where the world tends to collectively hit the pause button and hit the reset button. So if you're even considering it, it's a great time because a lot of people around you are doing it too. Now, I can take you further than just a dry January. And that's what's great about what we're doing is we're building ongoing community and support after the 21 days. That's a great place to start.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for all your time today and your wisdom, Jenn.
Loved it. Love getting to know you better too.
Me too. Okay, I hit stop there.